Welcome to the Ron T-Bone Shed Show in my living room. So this is going to be the third video I've done tonight. So I changed my shirt because I wanted to look different. Anyway, this is a video I've been wanting to do ever since I acquired these two horns. It's about olds, F-E olds. Now, these aren't just your average olds. It's not your vintage olds. It's not your ambassador, your special, your studio, or your super, or your recording, or your operas. It's about the custom crafted P-15 and P-16 trombones, which I have right there. So that is the P-16 and that is the P-15. But before we get into it, let me tell you a little bit about it. I pulled some information off of my friend John Lowe's website called itsabear.com. He's truly the F.E. Olds aficionado, at least out here on the West Coast. I don't know about anywhere else, but any information that I have about olds, I get from John, and anything that I don't get from John, I try to supplement through research and searching, but it's pretty much everything he's already amassed in terms of information. In fact, the other night he was just telling me, he goes, I basically own every single olds that was ever made, and I believe it. I'm not even that close. But let me grab these papers real quick, and I am going to talk to you about these horns. So olds made two top of the line, like top, like above everything else they made, called custom crafted. Okay, so they made the custom crafted P-15, and they made that, let me look here, the paper, right around, let's say, sometime in the mid-1960s. So he said it's not in the 1962 catalog, but it's in the 1966 catalog. Well, my P-15 is a 1972 model, so it's near the end of the run. But here, let me show you. So here's the P-15. Okay, this is not original to the horn. So the P-15 here, if you take a look at it. Now, okay, so here's another thing. This has a brush finish on it. I didn't do this brush finish. In fact, how I came about this horn is somebody who watches my channel said, hey, you looking for this horn? I'm going to go out to this place, this other, I think it's another country because he's in Europe. He's in Spain. So he went somewhere and he checked out this P-15 and bought it, and then decided he didn't like it and he wanted to know if I had something to trade. So I traded him my Bach 36 that I got in a estate sale, and I completely stripped it and polished it because he didn't want any lacquer on it, because he just wanted to hand polish it himself, because he didn't want to deal with lacquer. So that's his. So this was brush finish and it's unlacquered, and you can see here on the bell it says custom crafted, but it doesn't say P-15. Now, the original P-15 was supposed to come with a bell that was made out of the same material they made the recording out of, which was what they called their, I think they called their, what was it, the lubaloy? Yeah, the lubaloy, which was basically a high copper content brass. So he said here that it's possible that the lubaloy was Old's term for lubaloy. Okay, same thing, different spelling. A family of copper-based alloys containing 3/18 zinc and 0.52% tin. But at any rate, the bell of this horn is yellow brass. Okay, so this does not have the lubaloy in it, which would have been a redder color. And then, like I said, it would have normally said P-15 right in there, but it doesn't. It says custom crafted by F.E. Olds, Fullerton, California. So there's a good chance that since this isn't the red brass, that this was a custom model, basically the P-15 without the red brass or the P-15 designation on it. But this is pretty much it. So if you look at its construction, notice how the gooseneck goes straight up, kind of goes around, comes down, and it has an 8-inch bell shiny on the inside. It is constructed very much like the Con 6H. My guess is that they built this horn, this custom horn, to compete in that market, because this horn was basically a departure from all the other olds, because the other olds had a narrower body on the top, had the dual bore 585 500 slide. This is a single bore 500 lightweight slide. About, actually, the P-16 has a 7-ounce slide. This is a 7.7-ounce slide. though this horn is a little bit lighter overall than that horn is without this counterweight on it. So 8-inch bell, 500 bore, lightweight slide, mostly nickel from the bell all the way around down to the bottom of the crook, even nickel here, nickel all the way up. So really the only thing that's not nickel is the bell. So let me read to you a little bit about the P-15 here. So the P-15 was the first trombone in Olds custom range. It was introduced sometime in the mid-1960s. It's not in the 1962 catalog like I stated, but it is in the 1966 catalog and remained in production into the mid-70s. It's on the 1974 price list, but not on the 1978 price list, and mine is a 1972, so it's kind of like right in the middle there. With the exception of the bell, the entire horn is made of nickel silver. The description of the bell material is not consistent. In the 1966 and 67 catalogs, it's supposed to be 0.018 lightweight lubaloy, LUB-A-LOY is how they spelled it here. In 1973, the catalog just says lightweight brass, which is what I got. So in some ways, the P-15 broke new ground for Olds. I don't know. I'd say it totally broke new ground for Olds because all the other Olds had 7.5-inch bells, the dual bore slide, and the metal was really hard. They left the metal hard, so it had a very direct and tonal sound to it. This one is very different. So the dual bore slide, heavy braces, and dual octagonal inner slides, known as fluted slides, that characterized earlier top of the line small bore tenors, like the R-15, that's the recording, and the R-20 recording, and the S-15 Super were abandoned in favor of a single bore slide, conventional 3-piece braces, and round inner tubes on the slide, not the fluted ones. On the other hand, in contrast to the later P-16, ta-da, the P-15 borrowed heavily from earlier Olds designs, earlier as in pre-1948, pre-World War II, which would be another video I did where I played and showcased all of my 1930s to 1940s old Olds. Some of them had tuning in the slide with one-piece bells and were pretty fantastic. One had the little bear counterweight. They were all pretty front heavy because they weren't really working on balance. I think we're working pretty much on design features and tonal characteristics. Based on his rough measurements, the only parts completely unique to the P-15 are the end crook of the hand slide and lead pipe. Some parts, like the slide tubes, are identical to those of other models, while others, such as the bell, use a different material but were made on borrowed tooling. The custom name seems to have been meant to imply a higher level of handwork. Whether or not that was actually the case, the cost of the P-15 would certainly lead the buyer to expect an instrument of the highest quality. So in 1974, it listed the P-15 for $520. By comparison, the S-15 Super was only listed for $370, and the R-20 recording, which is a larger bore instrument, with the F attachment, was listed for $500. So this was the most expensive, highest, fanciest, custom-designed trombone in Old's arsenal of the day. That's the P-15. And as I play it, it reminds me, because I have a lot of trombones, and several of them being cons, it reminds me a lot of playing a con. In fact, it's a little bit between a Con 6H and a King 3B, because it has some of the brilliance in the tone that the 3B has, but it has at the same time it has the warmth that the 6H has. So I find it somewhere in between. So okay, so let's talk about the next custom crafted model, which is the Olds P-16 here, with the kind of this counterweight sort of here. Take a look. This counterweight is more characteristic of the 1970s Olds, where they stopped spending the counterweight up here on the ambassadors and they started using these that were mounted on the tuning brace. And then of course it has its own custom sticker here, which is kind of shiny. And these are solid nickel braces here. And most of the horn is brass. Most of it's brass, not like the other one where a lot of it's nickel. 7.5-inch bell, heavier bell. than the P-15. P-15 is lighter. This one's heavier. Okay, and this is the lightest slide. This is the 7-ounce slide. That has the 7.7-ounce slide. Let's talk about what John had printed on the P-16. So mine's a 1977 model, which would indicate it's at the end of the run here. 500 bore, 7.5-inch bell. The P-16 was the final small bore model to be introduced by Olds, appearing sometime around 1977. As with other custom models, it was situated as the top of Olds' line in 1978. The P-16 listed for $550 compared to the $475 for the Super. Sales literature claims that Bert Herrick, an LA-based tech best known for his mouthpieces and lead pipes, was involved in this design, and that special alloys selected for resonance and workability in very thin gauges have been used. A magazine ad from 1977 mentions that Wayne Andre, along with Eddie Burt, Harry DeVito, Cy Berger, and Bill Porter, and uses the pitch line, 5 great trombonists, 1 great trombone. So great or not so great, the P-16 didn't save Olds from shutting down in 1979. It did not. They waited too long to make these things happen. I mean, the Bach 16 and 12 and the King 3B and the 6H, they're already dominating things. The same thing happened with Holton. Holton was also making great horns in the 1970s, but they were waiting too late to get into the lightweight market. So, and I've got those, like the TR100 is fantastic horn, but you know, it is what it is. And there are few of these around. So as I mentioned, the P-15 I bought from a guy in Spain. He's the only one that I've seen it one other place, and it disappeared fast. It was like $1,300, but this was a trade. This, I have not seen another one of these anywhere in the last 10 years that I've been searching the internet and scouring it for one of these. This one popped up on Facebook Marketplace by a college student. And I'm like, how much? And so I'm not going to tell you, but we made a deal. He was a little insecure about some of the corrosion that was beginning to appear on some of the brass. And I said, I'm going to buy it anyway because it's the only one around. It's not that bad. I mean, I haven't done anything to it. I haven't stripped it. I haven't done anything except just reseal the horn to make sure that no other corrosion would continue to grow on it. So it's pretty much in remission right now. Anyway, so let's talk about this one some more. From a styling standpoint, it looks rather generic. As compared to the iconic Olds designs of the Super and the Studio and the Recording. It's almost as if the designers went back to the early 30s in the pre-World War II self-balancing models, but I think it's more likely Olds was looking to the contemporary Bach 12, there we go, 6H, the Martin Committee. Actually, by that time the committee was done, they were already making the Martin Magna, which I played the other night. For inspiration, the single bore 500 slide and the 7.5-inch bell would certainly support that theory. Anyway, one interesting design feature is the elongated flange on the lower end of the hand slide. That would be this right here. See that? Elongated right here. As opposed to being, like an outer sleeve. So keeping it shorter like that actually makes the slide a lot lighter. One interesting, let's see, we talked about that, intended to provide some protection for the lower slide too from corrosion, but due to contact with the player's skin. The Con 100H employs a similar design. It's true, and I got one over here. As previously mentioned, advertising implies that the P-16 is a lightweight horn, and it certainly is lighter than any of the other Olds tenor trombones of that same period. So the outer slide does not have any added mass, no outer sleeves or increased wall thickness. This particular horn dates from the mid-1978, well, mine is 1977. It came to me without a counterweight. He's talking about the one on his website. So if you want to see it, go to itsabear.com and click on, horns or instruments, and down the list you'll see P-15 and P-16. But that's some really good information that you can find, again, on John Lowe's itsabear.com website. So let's go ahead and get to play it. And the nice thing about these horns is they didn't use the tapered receiver known as the Morse taper, which really only took the narrowed shank of the proprietary Olds mouthpieces. This takes basically a standard mouthpiece shank. So we'll start with the P-15 here, and I'm going to be using my Marcinkiewicz 6E, which is one of my favorite mouthpieces. So check out the characteristic sound on this. All this always sounds better on headphones. I know a lot of you are watching this on your phone, but you're not going to get the full tonal. It's bad enough I'm recording it on my Samsung phone, but with headphones you're going to get more. Okay, here we go. Let's see. So yeah, super warm, nice ring to it. Like I said, it's kind of like between that 3B and 6H type of feel. So can you hear that? That warm, ringy tone that comes from this yellow brass scratch finish bell, and then all the other nickel here really just helps with that articulation. So yeah, I mean it speaks real nice. So there we go, 500 bore, 8-inch bell, mostly nickel with the relatively thin yellow brass bell. Okay, now on to the P-16, which was the next custom after that. Now they did make another custom craftsman horn, but that was the bass. It was the P-24G bass, and it wasn't G for George Roberts. It was G because it wasn't F tubes; they were G tubes. Anyway, I got one of those too. So here we go. This is going to be maybe a little different sound. I don't know. Smaller bell, so maybe a slightly more focused tone. More yellow brass, but the brass is softer, ringier. Okay, this one was lower pitch, bigger bell, still ringy, but it feels thinner. That's probably why it got that really nice warm sound to it. Okay, here we go. So let's take a look at this. Big, giant, thick, solid brace. Solid brace. Okay, all these braces are solid. And I think that's where they're saying they're getting the inspiration from, maybe like the Martins, because Martins use solid braces. Okay, here we go. So there's that. Very warm. Um, Still a little more of that focus that Olds had, but still very warm. And I would say that they did successfully design a horn that would compete well with the Bach 16, Bach 12, Martin Magna, Martin Committee, and the Con 6H. This one I wouldn't say is as characteristic as the King 3B. The King 3B is still a little brighter, snappier. This was darker, warmer, and still a bit more on the direct side, a little more direct than the P-15. The 15 is a little more spread, kind of like, the other two horns I was talking about, the 6H and the 3B. So anyway, those are the two custom designed, custom crafted horns, trombones that Olds made, that was considered the absolute top and pinnacle of their design before they folded. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you see any one of these horns, good luck. Like I said, I had to go to Europe to find one, and I got really lucky on the other. But these are absolutely beautiful horns. I'm blessed and humbled to have them in my collection, and I play them as often as I can. Anyway, signing off. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.